Hey folks, Jim Hansen, and I am your East Coast Warlord. But there is no West Coast Warlord this week, because Colonel Kurt is off at a secure, undisclosed location conducting covert operations. So it's just me, and you, and Trump. Holy crap. What a week he had. I think it was a great week for the Donald. He got a very unwarranted indictment. He was arraigned, he pleaded not guilty, he gave a speech.
Today we witness the most evil and heinous abuse of power in the history of our country. A corrupt sitting president had his top political opponent arrested on fake and fabricated charges of which he and numerous other presidents would be guilty.
And all of this is part and parcel of the same 7-year witch hunt the left has been on since he popped his head up. And it's insane. And they're not going to stop. That's the one thing we can be certain of. They have lost. They're like, Charlie Brown and Lucy in the football. They are Wile E. Coyote to his Roadrunner. They have done everything, stupid idea after stupid idea, to try and bring him down. And they're 0 for the game. I'm not counting that garbage Jean Carroll thing. Everybody knows she's lying. But all the charges they've brought, every single garbage one, from the very start of Trump Russia, through the impeachments, through all of the rest of it, up to this one now, we've got an indictment for doing what every other president has done and bringing home information relevant to his presidency for his memoirs, books, and library, etc. But he's Trump, so it's illegal. Wasn't illegal when Hillary had an email server in her bathroom and exposed all of our national secrets while she was actually Secretary of State to the world. What about that? Her and Obama, back channel, email addresses that nobody's ever seen the emails from? No big deal. None of that's a problem. Biden, with a whole garage full of classified records. And worse than that, he had the Penn Biden Center, where the Chinese are paying him and all his friends no-show jobs, and they've got a bunch of classified documents there. Weird. I don't know what that would be for. No idea why they'd want those. So the whole thing is this continuing saga of the left is going to keep at Trump forever. I'm not sure they ever catch him. I don't think there's any way. Especially in Miami, one Cuban on a jury in Miami and Trump walks. So I don't think there's any way they catch him on that. But I want to get to what I think this is all leading to. All right? They have a plan. The left is deluded. They have Trump derangement syndrome. So they're not acting logically. They're not acting rationally. They are just lost. They are crazy. And what they're doing, though, is part of a bigger plan they have. Because the left operates in concert. They don't just do things. It's not like one person on the left's like, operating independent, like this special prosecutor, Jack Smith. He's not independent of anything, all right? He is a member of the deep state permanent bureaucracy left. And he's going to do what he needs to do as his part of this. So has the House and the Select Committee on January 6th and everybody else. They coordinate their activities. They do everything they can to space them out, to have them happen when it's good for them and bad for us, all of that. So here's what I see happening to Trump that they're doing. And it's a pretty good plan. I'll give them credit. All right. They are crazy, but this is one, and it's good, but it could also go incredibly badly wrong for them. So what they're trying to do is get him disqualified to serve as president because he participated in an insurrection, okay? It's called the disqualification clause. I think it's clause 3 of the 14th Amendment. It came into being after the Civil War when, kind of rightly, they said anyone who was in the Confederacy probably should not be eligible to be part of the once again reunited country as a leader again, since they conducted a civil war against it. Reasonable. They're trying to get to there with Trump, and that's why they had to invent the insurrection. January 6th could not be just a political rally that turned into a several-hour riot. It had to be an insurrection. Otherwise, they couldn't use all the full force of the security apparatus of the United States against Trump and us. So it was all part of the same thing. They wanted to use that to increase, Homeland Security and everybody else who now is in the domestic extremism, domestic terrorism business, which they then tied to the misinformation business and election integrity business. They've got a whole industry, a Orwellian industrial complex that they're using against us. Trump, as he is wont to say, says, they're not after me, I'm just in the way between them and us. And he's right. He is literally the front man for the entire movement to deconstruct the deep state. I'm guessing most of you watched Tucker's, I think, third episode, Tucker on Twitter, where he talked about why Trump had to be taken down because he interrupted the forever war money printing and distributing and laundering machine that our security and national defense apparatus had turned into. But there's also the whole journalistic academic class that just hate Trump. He is everything they hate about us because he's crass and he's rude and he's belligerent and he's obnoxious and he doesn't pay attention to their rules. He told them to pound sand. So they can't tolerate him, and they've been looking for a way. They wanted to stop him. That failed. That was, they had Hillary already. It was going to be Obama plus. Hillary had plans to make Obama look like a piker as far as a fundamental transformation of this country. She was going to take us all the way to a more or less commie police state authoritarian place where we were outlawed. And just think about if Hillary had won and appointed the 3 Supreme Court justices that Trump did, what do you think they would have done given what they did with Trump as president and those 3 justices in place? They've gone absolutely crazy. If they had Hillary and the Supreme Court, we'd all be in internment camps. Actually, I'd have run up the black flag here and Kurt would have run it up in the West Coast, and we might be warlording for real. So the fact that now they want to use a Civil War era disqualification clause to stop a guy from protesting the most corrupt election of my lifetime. So I think that's the play. So we've gone down this. There are indictments to come. We got the indictment, the 37 counts of having classified information that he was almost certainly allowed to have or could authorize himself to have. And, the whole thing about the Presidential Records Act versus the Espionage Act is legit. I think having this in Miami, Trump's got a chance to get off, but none of that will happen before the election. So they can use it for their ongoing smear campaign. They can use it to generate Trump fatigue. They can use it to basically make sure that Trump indictment is in the headlines all the way up through the general election. They want, and they're kind of walk a fine line because they want to make sure he wins because they think they can beat him. And they want to make sure that they've got enough ammo in the general, and they've got enough minds changed for the people who don't vote in primaries, which is too many people, to go ahead and defeat him in the general election. So my belief is that they will probably, I'm betting that the Georgia indictments for a phone call with the Secretary of State there, another garbage, attack on him. If you can't say, I believe that this election was bad and I want you to do your job and go find the votes that were improperly cast and throw them out because that will change the results and I'll win, what can you do? How can you possibly say that that's not a legal and proper thing for Trump to be able to do? But they're probably going to indict him for it. Again, probably won't stick. They'll be, it's another Wile E. Coyote move. It's the Acme indictment factory, right? So that one's coming, and I guess that one will probably be next because Smith doesn't want to be 2 in a row, right? He dropped his classified documents one. Then he's going to let the Georgia people do their thing. Then I'm guessing they need to get this insurrection disqualification thing rolling. And I figure around, November-ish, around the end of the year when it's election season some places and things going on, they're going to come out with, based on, all the special prosecutor stuff, based on the January 6th committee, based on the invented insurrection, where they've convicted people, they've convicted people of sedition, right? Even though there was no seditious conspiracy, what there was a bunch of people who wanted to be all gunned up and ready to go in case Trump called them out to save the day, or in case Antifa came, either of which are constitutionally sound reasons to be planning for the possibility of armed conflict. What was never planned for, and there is not one shred of evidence for in the whole January 6th bullshit collection of abuse of power, is evidence that they plan to use force to disrupt a government function, which is a requirement. The conspiracy was not a conspiracy because it was not to commit a crime. They were conspiring to do something legal, which is called planning. Okay, that's all that was. Here's the problem you have. If you charge Donald Trump as President of the United States for contesting that election and asking people to protest and petition their government for redress of grievances peacefully and patriotically, as he said, you have just outlawed political speech. And I think that is something that they're willing to risk. They're willing to risk that being hung on them because they want to hang insurrectionists around the neck of Donald Trump, and they want to use that disqualification clause to say because he participated in an insurrection, he is ineligible for office. That's their game. That's the long, crazy game. Will they do it? I think so. I think they're going to. I don't think they can stop themselves. I don't think they can help themselves. I don't think it's going to work out the way they want it to. I don't think anybody believes Trump organized a rebellion against the United States of America. And I don't think normal people are going to look at Joe Biden, the decrepit, dementia-addled, shuffling loser, as a guy locking up his political rival and just say, well, come on. He's Trump, it's fair. You can't look at that in the same way you've looked at a lot of the rest of this stuff. The impeachments were bad, and people are like, oh, well, but Trump's naughty. Trump's, he's a bad boy. Now you're actually at the point where during a political campaign, the sitting president of the United States is abusing the security organs and law enforcement apparatus of this country to lock up, arrest, well, maybe not lock up, to arrest, arraign, and try to throw in prison and disqualify his top competitor. That's just not going to sit well. I don't think normal people are going to buy that. So we'll see. And that's even before we get to there's an entire legal wrangling about can they hang that on him. Again, I don't think they care. They want the headline, Trump indicted for insurrection. They want that headline because most people, as always, never see the retraction. If he doesn't get convicted, and it'll all happen after the election. So they need that headline out. They need him to have to defend himself against the charge of being an insurrectionist during both the Republican primary and then, assuming he wins, during a general election. It's a batshit crazy play. I think they're going to make it, and it's up to all of us to beat them at their own game. All right, got one more segment. We're talking about the war we're winning against the wokesters after the break.